I'd like to welcome you to the Vasa Gallery Talk, and today we're having photographer Sandeep Biswas from India, who will be joining us, who is joining us, and is here with us. Okay, uh, Sandeep, how are you doing?
Good, Roberto. Thank you.
Well, good.
Thank you for getting me here.
Yeah. Well, could you talk a little bit about your history of photography, how you got into it, and how you got where you're doing?
Well, I think the interest started when I was in school, and my father handed me his old cameras. I used to have black and white films in them, and I used to hang around, play around with the camera, take pictures, and then after school, I went to art school. I studied art, and it was a formal education in visual arts. So I had a formal education in visual arts, but my love for the camera never ended. So all I can say is it continued. And after I finished college, I tried being in advertising because the what I studied was based on advertising. But then after that, I couldn't keep away from photography. So I had to jump into photography. So 2 years after I finished college, I decided that I wanted to take photography as a full-time career. And that's how it started.
Well, fantastic. What kind of photography? I mean, how would you frame the kind of photography you do? Is it commercial? Is it documentary? Is it conceptual? How would you talk about it?
Uh, I started as a commercial photographer, honestly, because that was the only way to survive through photography when I started. Documentary wasn't bringing me enough work, but editorial and commercial photography was giving me the sustenance I was looking for in the initial stage, but this was not something I wanted to get into in the long run. I did that for a little while, but then fortunately, what happened was because I used to do a lot of personal projects parallel to my commercial work. So I managed to win a fellowship. I managed to get a fellowship from the Japan Foundation, and that took me to Kyoto University of Art and Design as an associate visiting fellow with the photography department. What happened was that I spent a few months with that department as a research fellow, and it kind of opened avenues for me. It kind of opened the way I wanted to look at photography. It changed my perception, basically, or changed my perspective. And when I came back, things that were different. The way I was doing photography after I came back was different than what I was before I left for Japan. And that's when I started to get opportunity for documentary photography, exactly what I wanted to do. And I started working with UNICEF, and it continued for a while.
How would you describe the difference between your work in Japan and then coming back to India? What was different?
I think the difference was that a fellowship takes care of you. It does not, you do not need to worry about survival and sustenance. It takes care of you financially. So it just takes you off that mode and keeps you where you want to be. And it makes you focus on what you want to do. And that's where it helped, because it helped me build the work I wanted to create. It helped me understand myself the way I wanted to kind of mold myself too. I mean, it kind of helped me find the focus or the first footing towards where I wanted to.
So was your work part of, could be seen in mainstream of Indian photography, or were you bringing in new perceptions, new ways of working?
Um, could you just come back to that again?
With your experience in Japan,
Mhm.
how you were working there and the experiences you had with photography and other photographers, and basically the art in the East. When you came back, was your work still a kind of a mainstream of India photographers, or were you bringing in a new vision?
I don't know. I mean, I tried bringing my own self into my work. Basically, that's what I wanted to do. Before I went to Japan, my work was a lot based on very realistic images, very realistic. But when I came back, it I started to work more on metaphorical images. Rather, I would say my work was getting a little surreal. it was breaking the reality, and I was enjoying that because that's exactly when I started to realize that even my art education started to help me. And I started to break out of reality. I started to break out of that, trying to bring in the truth. I found it as an escape rather than trying to get into the reality of things.
Okay. So you're going to show us work from two different bodies of work.
Yes.
So let's get to that, so we get a chance to see your work and hear your thoughts on it. And for the audience, we're shifting to screen share, and we'll see how quickly this works. Okay, so go
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean,
On your
actually, it's
thing.
interesting because, sorry, I said it's interesting because this is the first time in my life with Vasa that I actually exhibited commissioned works, not personal works. So it was a very different kind of an exhibition and experience for me to show commissioned works as an exhibition, as a full-fledged exhibition, because these images that I did were based on documentary and reality rather than my personal work, which breaks out of that reality. So you know that one of the bodies is from UNICEF series that I did for the book called India's Story of Triumph Over Polio, and the other I did was on the tradition, heritage, and culture of a state in India, Western state in India called Rajasthan. So they're both basically commissioned for coffee table books. The UNICEF book, of course, is out. The Rajasthan is delayed due to many reasons, but I'm hoping it will be out someday. So should I get started with the images? So
Yeah,
let's
let's
get
share your screen.
yeah. Yeah, that's my screen. So I start with the UNICEF images here. Um, so India's story of triumph over polio. So as you can see that the images are me, and I've done them for UNICEF. And I'm sorry, it seems like it's not. Yeah, there I go. Yeah, so you can see these are, I mean, this is basically polio vaccination. Polio was one of the biggest governmental, non-governmental projects in India because it was an epidemic once, and India spent a lot of time and money, especially UNICEF, WHO, even Gates Foundation and many organizations. They spent a lot of money eradicating polio in India, and India was supposed to be the most difficult countries of all to do that. And we were way behind many countries because of our conditions, our Indian situation in the rural areas, which are tough and difficult. So it was actually almost seemed impossible to eradicate polio out of India, but things changed. I think it's how people change, how basically the influencers and the polio workers, they kind of, the way they change their strategy and they change their dealing with the whole situation is what changed it. And suddenly one day we find that we have actually managed to eradicate polio out of India, which was I think it was a lot of hard work and a lot of selfless work from a lot of people. So you can see this image. This is from Bihar, India, a state in the eastern India. A child being vaccinated at a booth near his. These children have to be below 5 years old. So you vaccinate children before they're 5, and after 5 they get the immunity. After that, they have the immunity against polio, so they don't need to be vaccinated. So you have to protect them till they're 5. So this is a child being vaccinated at a polio booth. This is Maharashtra, a place called Bhiwandi. It's a very Muslim-dominated area. You can see through their dresses, and it's another one. Bihar and Maharashtra, they were among the worst hit in terms of polio. So polio has 3 main days. There's planning, but after the planning, they have the pre-booth, booth, and the post-booth, which is the house-to-house day. So this is a pre-booth day, which is one day before your children are taken to the polio booths for vaccination. So on that day, there's a lot of awareness that's created. So these are schoolgirls who are walking around the lanes, uh, shouting slogans, creating awareness, trying to reach out to people, tell them that tomorrow you need to get your children to the booth and get them vaccinated. So this is a part of that activity. There are a lot of activities that happen before the booth day. So this is part of the activity. This is Mumbai, Maharashtra. So nowhere else ever polio vaccination is done during the night, but Mumbai was the only city which ever kind of started this vaccination program, which was at night. That was primarily because Mumbai is a huge city and it's a growing city and it has a lot of construction happening. And due to the construction, you will find a lot of migrant labor. So the migrant laborers, basically, they do not have the same place to go to work every day. They could be going to one location one day, a second location, depending on where the work is. So, but they come back, but a lot of them live under flyovers. So what they do is after they come, so they can't leave the children behind. A lot of the children don't go to school because they can't afford to send them to school, and so what they do is they take their children. So it's very difficult to track where they've gone during the day. So uh, basically the workers, they kind of track them and figure where all you could find them after they complete their work, and where do they come and cook their meals, and where do they sleep at night. So this was a vaccination that would happen during the night. So also you might notice that in India they were using oral drops, not injectable vaccine. So in India, all the vaccination is being done through oral drops. So they're given vaccination orally, not through through an injection. So yes, so this is a child being vaccinated late at night under a flyover here, and that's a vaccinator who's taking out the vaccine. You can see that. So it was an interesting program because, people were actually, you realize how people survive in big cities, or rather a big city like Mumbai, and how do migrant laborers survive there. This is again Mumbai, a place called Antop Hill. Again, a migrant area, again, a migrant labor dominated area where um, most of the labor just come to Mumbai for 3 or 4 months. Then they go back to their villages, they do their farming there. But they come during the non-farming time of the year, they come to the city and they start uh, uh, doing various kind of labor work, primarily to do with construction. They're primarily construction labor. So you can see the very narrow lanes, very congested areas, they're all living in shacks, and there's a team of vaccinators who are vaccinating this child. So it's all about vaccinating every child. You miss a child and the epidemic could grow. So it's very important to make sure that every child is vaccinated and not even single. So a lot of homework, a lot of back work is done, and a lot of data is created to make sure that no child is missed, every child is reached, and every child is vaccinated. So this is a city called Aligarh in northern state northern state of UP. So Aligarh is a well-known city in the UP or Uttar Pradesh state. So this is again a booth in a school, in a governmental school. So it's just an image of the empty vials of polio vaccines. After, as they keep getting used, they keep putting them there. You can see a child. Actually, there's a row of other children behind that, so they're waiting for their turn. So this is basically just to show that how much vaccination is being done, how many children are being vaccinated, and just 2 drops from each vial. So this must have been quite a lot of kids who are being vaccinated. Now this image is basically one of the last images I mean, it was basically after India won the war against polio and eradicated polio. And I had gone to photograph 1,000 polio workers from Uttar Pradesh who had gathered at a place to celebrate the success of polio eradication in India. So this was an image I had taken from a top of a building. You can probably see a few of those 1,000 people, but there were actually 1,000 people standing together. Um, Looking today, I wonder if we can be so many people together anymore for the next few months. But it's interesting that people could stand that close to each other at that time. So yes, this is celebrating success of eradicating polio in India. And yeah, this is uh, it's so towards go around the kill and they keep working. So they have to carry their children. The children have to be around them, and the work goes on, life goes on, and you have to reach out to them and vaccinate them. So this is a child getting vaccinated. The father's holding and the mother's looking from behind. So you can see that. So that's a few images from. I mean, of course, one can go to the Vasa exhibition and look at more images on polio. And if somebody wants to see, they can always go back to the 2018 exhibition of my polio in Rajasthan. So yeah, so that's a few images that I can talk about right now on polio. Let's move on to Rajasthan. As you can see, this is another book commissioned by a hotel called Mana Hotels, who have a chain of hotels in Rajasthan. They belong to the state. It's a western state where, which is very, very proud about their history, heritage, and royalty. Rajasthan actually means the land of kings. So it's actually a state which had the maximum number of royal kings in India at one point of time. Even the royal exists even today, though they don't rule anymore to that extent, but they have their huge palaces and they're still kings living there, but they're living more modern lives now. So the hotel commissioned me a book on Rajasthan because they wanted to come out with this book. Still in process. I've completed my work. Recently, the text got done too, so now I think it should be going into production someday. So I'm hoping that happens. There've been reasons it's been going slow, but it's been an interesting project to work on. It's been a great project to work on. Let's move on. So you can see Rajasthan, is about lots of festivals. I mean, Rajasthan is full of festivals. The amount of festivals Rajasthan has probably a lot of states won't have that many. So you can see this is a festival in Bikaner, city of Bikaner, called the Camel Festival. So Rajasthan is a city of deserts. So because of the desert, you have a lot of camels. So they're very proud of their camel, and most of the kings fought and the warriors fought their battles on camels, not on horses, because you had sand under your feet. So you can see people dressed traditionally, dress up their camels. They're very proud of dressing up their camels. They're very proud of that fact that they love to dress up their camels. So you can see a nicely dressed up camel, a man dressed up traditionally, a child dressed up traditionally. So during the festivals, you'll see a lot of history and culture coming alive for a few days. This is a place called Nagaur, which is the center of Rajasthan. It's not a very popular tourist destination like Bikaner, but it has one of the largest cattle fair. We have a cattle fair called Pushkar, which is very popular, but which is very popular with tourists. But this one is larger, better, but not as popular with tourists. So it's a portrait of a lady. Well, I mean, it's an interesting. I love the way the the color of the veil she's wearing, and the color of her dress matching so well. She's so well matched in terms of color, and what intrigued me were her eyes. So this is a portrait I did while I was traveling there, and you can see there's a pan on her head. And what they do is they collect uh, camel dung, and then they create dung cakes with it, which they use as fuel to cook their food. So this is a regular morning activity with many women in that area. So yep, we can. So it's basically a portrait of a lady in Nagaur. That's a camel trader. So he's got his truck. So there's the festival. So the festival basically is about trading animals. So they trade in animals, and camel is definitely one of the most important animals to trade in. Though there's horse trading, there is cow and bull trading happening as well, and there is a few other, but mostly domestic animals, animals that can be used either in farming or milking or local transport. So camels are used for milking and basically pulling camel carts for transport in local areas. So that's a camel trader. He's just bought his camels from the trade, getting them onto the truck, and will be driving off with the camels to his village. So that's a portrait of a camel trader. This is an interesting place that I've been to called Jhalawar, which is a border area with central and in a central state in India called Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh means actually literally means central state, and this is actually a festival that happens every year called Chandrabhaga, and this happens at a temple which is called the Chandrabhaga temple, and it's a 7th century BC temple. So the villagers from surrounding areas come and they worship Lord Shiva. So it's a Shiva temple. So Shiva is actually worshipped in a form of a phallus. It's basically to do with fertility and bearing children. So it's basically women worship Shiva for fertility and so that they can have children. So it's a festival at a Shiva temple, and you'll find a lot of women come and worship at the temple during this time. So you can see this young girl. She's quite young at this moment, but I think would be worshiping for her husband and a family life in future. So she's offering flowers to the god right now. That's how it is. This is again Jhalawar during the festival. Now, Rajasthan has a history of tradition of entertainment, and one of the biggest entertainments there is the Behrupiyas, or the impersonators. So what the impersonators do is they dress up, or they transform themselves as primarily as either gods or demons from the Indian mythology, and and then they go on the streets entertaining people, dancing, just playing tricks and doing their little acts. So it's a very old tradition when there was no television or there was no media to enjoy. I mean, so this is actually hundreds of years old, this tradition. So it still continues in certain areas, though it's a dying art, but it still continues. And so you can see these two boys and are transforming themselves. I think the green one is transforming himself into a demon, and the white one is transforming himself into Garuda, who was part of the story of Ramayana. He tried to save. Ramayana is the story of Rama, and his wife Sita was abducted by a demon king called Ravana. So Garuda tried to rescue her, but unsuccessfully, and he was killed at that by Ravana while trying to rescue Sita. So he's trying to impersonate Garuda, and the other one, and you can see there's another artist who's trying to get them ready. This is an image from a little town called Bundi. It's called Kajli Teej. Again, this is again a festival for women. And this is they have this festivals in India for women fast for their husbands and for the long life of their husbands. So it's a very, very old tradition in Hindu uh, religion. And so women, what they do is they fast through the day, and they put henna on their hands, and they decorate their hands, arms, primarily their palms, not their arms, but their palms. And then evening they get together and they break the fast. So this is the time when they were breaking the fast. And I found this lady's hand interesting. Normally, henna is done in a very, very fine and intricate manner. This one was not done it was done a little, what I would say, rough compared to what I would normally see in the cities. So yes, so this I kind of like the fact that she was very proud of the henna, but it was interesting that the henna was not done as intricately and with the finesse normally I would see it. But anyway, it's kind of part of the festival. So I was there. So I went into the temple, met these ladies, and I took the picture of the hand, which I found the most interesting.
Sandeep, I want to thank you for showing us their work. It's very intriguing, and your detailed description of it.
Pleasure.
I think it's very culturally rich. And the polio vaccine series was very moving as to what the effort of the United Nations could do to help solve a problem. You've been photographing and living in India, your home country. Could you talk briefly about what you see happening in India related to photography?
I think photography is a growing field in India. I mean, it's growing very fast. It's getting very, very popular. I think everybody today is becoming a photographer. Everybody is a photographer. I think everybody enjoys photography professionally or as an amateur. So I mean, of course, there is a lot of opportunity when it comes to photography compared to when I started years back. Now there are photography galleries, there are art galleries promoting photography compared to earlier. But still, it is still a struggling medium compared to the mainstream other mediums like painting, sculpture, or installation and all. Because I think the main thing is that photography has the character of being reproducible. So a lot of collectors, a lot of buyers, they want things unique. So I think that's somewhere we need to relook, because photographers tend to do editions. I mean, even then, I mean, it's not that people are not buying. There are collectors for photography, but I mean, I don't know about museums buying that much of photography compared to the art, the other forms of art. Definitely, they are buying photography. I'm not saying that they're not buying photography, but definitely, if I look, my experience compared to the West or even USA is that photography still needs to get more encouragement in this country as an art form. I mean, of course, photography is commercially quite viable in this country in terms of documentary and commercial photography and wedding and all. But as an art form, it definitely can be given a lot more push. And I hope that things. I mean, photographers can start surviving only on art rather than trying to balance themselves between art and commercial work more. I mean, I don't know about how it's going to be in future from what the situation is, but let's hope things are better.
In light of all that, I understand you started a photography school. Could you just give us a brief description of that and what you're going to do?
The photography school basically is just an idea for me right now. Don't have a building. I don't have a space. I'm a one-man army. We're doing everything with the school at the moment. I do have a couple of young photographers who support me, but on the whole, um, I am the one who's running it mostly. Uh, I have a tie-up with a couple of interesting spaces, so they help me with the space, and sometimes also help me market my courses and workshops. Basically, I'm only doing workshops right now. I'm not doing courses. So primarily, it's based on workshops. It's a small idea. I'm starting it step by step, very, really, really small. I'm not trying to go really big uh, immediately because it needs a lot more investment. So finances are definitely, I mean, the resources are limited. So I need to take things slowly. But the idea is to be able to share good information, share serious ideas on photography to people who are interested in photography, youngsters
Yeah.
primarily, but also I get to older people. Yeah.
Sounds fantastic, and what an adventure you're on. Well, good. I want to thank you for taking the time to show us your work, to talk about everything you're doing. And I should mention that Sandeep's one of the head curators for VASA and has
Oh
been
yeah.
bringing in a
So,
lot of
bringing me
photographers,
there.
a lot of artists, photographers from India into our exhibition program. So it's wonderful. So Sandeep, you take care.
Yeah,
And
you too, Roberto. Thank you so much for letting me share my thoughts and views. I think when we start, we find lots of things to say, but we have time. We have limited time right now. So
okay.
thanks so much, Roberto.
Okay, take care
It's
of
been a
yourself.
pleasure. It's been a real
Be
pleasure.
healthy over there. Okay,
Thanks so much. Yeah.
ciao.
Bye. Ciao.